Somebody's doorbell's ringing.
It's my clock. The grandfather's clock. It's going to do every 15 minutes. I better shut the door, huh?
Two, one.
Oh, hey, I'm Ricky Bobby.
And I'm Cal Naughton Jr. Let's talk about kids on leashes.
Hey, I'm Ricky Bobby.
And I'm Cal Naughton Jr.
Do you know that cardboard is actually edible? Hey, I'm Ricky Bobby.
And I'm Cal Naughton Jr.
Let's talk about children reading too early. Fire Safety Week is right around the corner, and here are a few important tips you might want to listen to.
Wrapping your kids a newspaper at bedtime sounds like a good idea. Keeps them warm. But guess what? That stuff's flammable.
Hey, we've all run around with an empty milk jug full of gasoline and lit it in an open field, but make sure there's a parent close by. We've all wondered what gasoline tastes like. Don't drink it.
Fire safety begins in your brain at home.
And if you really want to know what gasoline tastes like, all you have to do is be on television and then have something happen. Have all the cameras go down, have all the audio go down, have everything go higgledy-piggledy, and all of a sudden, all you have is the producer in your ear going, dance. Guess what? At that moment, when you're first through it, in the first few times that happens to you, suddenly you know exactly what gasoline tastes like. We'll try and keep that away from you here today. Hi once again, everybody. I'm Ed Berliner. Welcome in to another edition, a rousing episode, if you will, of the Free-for-All, where, quite frankly, there is no agenda, there is no propaganda, there is no 7-second delay, there is no censorship, no fooling, which is, of course, what makes the job and what we do here absolutely perfect, including, of course, the people that I bring on. Let me go ahead and first introduce my guests. He has been on Sports Talk Radio for God knows how long. I met this man a zillion years ago when he was actually doing public relations for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, of all things, which people still to this day remember, and they say, where are the Strikers? Why do we not have them back? Where's professional soccer in Fort Lauderdale? It can't be there because all the good watering holes are gone from those days, and the stadium itself is entirely different. So there's all kinds of stories to tell from that, and maybe we'll get into them because the Striker fans will love it. It is a pleasure to welcome, where you'll also hear him on Fox Sports Radio, and you can read him in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle. Andy Furman puts that big face on here today. How you doing, Andy?
Thank you very much for having me, really. You must have joined the bottom of the barrel this weekend.
Why did you have to say that? That's not the truth. This show is based on people from all different walks of life to be able to have a conversation. So we're not like the usual bullshit quartet I figured I'd just get the word out of the way so everybody's happy. That is usually on cable news. This is a lot better here. This is conversation.
I get that, but the point is you've been doing this show for 50 years, and I finally got a shot to come on. But that's okay. I get it.
Well, wait a minute. Oh, we're going to get into an argument here because you never asked me to be on your show. Ever.
That's true. That's true.
Thank you. Okay. I do want to point out that my other guest has invited me on his show before, and I think the last time I was on his show, it created all kinds of danger and disaster in the Rocky Mountains. I worked and lived in Denver for 4 years, and he had me on his show one night, and I think there were people who wanted to reach through the radio and strangle me. You know what that means? Really good radio. He is the only guy, the only person in America you will find who is a sports talk show host and a municipal judge. So we've all got to be careful here because if you ever go through Otis, Colorado, I've got to be sure we're all covered. Dan Jacobs joins us here today on the Free for All. Good day, sir.
Hello, Ed. And I got my start being a lowly producer for the fastest show in sports, the Ed Berliner Show on the Ed, by the way, made the Sports Fan Radio Network what it is today.
Yeah, out of
that's
business.
How I got my start.
Yeah,
Yes.
out of business.
Yes, but that's how I got my start. The producer of the fastest show in sports on the Sports Fan Radio Network with Ed Berliner.
And so many people still remember that show. That was a great show, and we produced that out of a hovel radio station in Fort Lauderdale. Had a tremendous amount of fun on that show. And again, we were ahead of the curve because that was the show that didn't take any phone calls. All we had was guests. And I remember there was a television radio critic in Miami named Barry Jackson for the Miami Herald who said, "You can't do that. It won't work." I said, "Yeah, it will." And it did. So, because of guys like you. So there you go. And Dan and I have gotten in legal arguments before, but we'll do it again. We got a long way to go in a short time to get there. So
Well,
sit
the
back.
last argument we had, though, was a hockey argument.
Wait a minute now. What?
The last argument we had was a hockey argument
Correct.
about Nazem Kadri, and you wound up mixing it up with a former PR member of the Avalanche staff.
Right. A former PR. I'm going to remember his name here in a moment because I don't mind pointing it out. But he was the former PR director for the Colorado Avalanche who got in my face. And quite frankly, it took 2 or 3 exchanges. I slapped him down and he's gone. So, it's even better that way. Bye-bye.
Right.
I don't lose fights such as that. And by the way, there is hockey today, in case you're wondering. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. So there you go. A little bit of everything sitting here because we've got Olympics, we got hockey, we got dogs, we got the ASPCA. We got all kinds of different stuff to do. But before we get to that, let's start things off properly. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Ooh, showtime.
Showtime. Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
Showtime.
When you open the show with Jack Nicholson, what else could be better? Let's get to it, everybody. Gentlemen, we begin at a very simple position where I think a lot of us have, or at least would like to go ahead and start with what is happening in sports today. America is caught in the grip of what has happened with Simone Biles. The people who agree with what she has done, the people who disagree with what she has done, the absolute frightening, sexist, and even at times racist hate that is poured from the bile of a lot of the right-wing talkers, and those people out there who are screaming that she's quit, she's a coward, and she doesn't deserve to be an American. Well, I've covered all that on the show in the past, but let's go to the next step. Caleb Dressel is the best male swimmer in the world today, and he's a very humble guy. And I think out of everybody who has the right to say anything about an athlete and mental health, nobody says it better than a fellow athlete and somebody who has gone through the Olympic experience. In his interview, after winning his latest gold medal, Caleb Dressel made what has to be the single most salient point about Simone Biles, her leaving, the mental health, and what it actually takes to be an athlete.
One of the themes of these Olympics has been mental health, athletes' mental health. Simone Biles, the conversation that she helped continue. How do you handle the pressure? How do you handle the stress? And has it been too much at times?
I don't know what is considered too much. Every individual is different. That's why I'm not going to speak on anyone else's behalf. That's why I'm okay with the call that Simone did. That no one else's opinion matters because they're not the one in her situation. She's literally the best to ever do it, and then everyone wants to chime in. Just leave her alone. So for me, yes, I think it has been too much, whatever that may mean. I've had a couple breakdowns. It does pile up, but it's worth it. I know what I'm capable of doing. I know how to approach the mental side of things for myself, and nobody else's opinion matters for me. And for all the other athletes making their own calls, nobody else's opinion matters.
There it is. Nobody else's opinion matters but mine. And that right there, I think, is the most perfect point that can be made of all this. Because, gentlemen, the people who are pissing and moaning about Simone Biles and taking unwarranted shots at her, they don't live in her life. They are not in her head. They don't know what she's gone through. And that's the thing that I have railed against on social media to a lot of these knuckleheads and nitwits, is that you have no idea what life is like for her and what she's gone through. She has gone through some tremendous personal moments in the last few years regarding her family. So, in and of itself, if she decides that she wants to step back and not compete, that is her decision and nobody else's. And it has nothing to do with cowardice, being afraid, not wanting to represent America. It's hateful, it's spiteful, and it's evil, those who go after her. Andy, I'm going to go ahead and bring you in here first on this one because I know when we talked before the show, you were fired up about this subject and you wanted to rail on it. Go.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why I want to rail on it, because I think that the fact that you and I and anybody else has never walked in Simone Biles' shoes, that's great, and that's true. And I have it and you have it. And no one has ever been on the stage like the Olympics like she has, and that's why it's happening. But you can't tell me that she didn't have these effects of the twisties prior to going to Tokyo. She had to go to Tokyo, and then all of a sudden she got the twisties. And I'll tell you right now, there's some young girl back here in the States watching these Olympics on TV that's taking up a spot that Simone Biles is taking from her. She's saying, I could have been in that spot. So I think it's a bit of a selfish situation. Yeah, I don't want to see Simone Biles in harm's way. I get that. And this whole mess could have been stopped, and I'll tell you how. When she had the announcement that she's going to be out of the Olympics, although she came in and finished with the bronze today in the beam, she could have had this news conference done with the help of a physician and a coach. That would have saved everything.
Well, wait a minute. Why does she have to? Well, I'm going to stop you right there. What says she has to have a doctor or a coach sitting there? Why? Because if it bothers
because
her,
no
if it's
other
something that
athlete has
she's
ever done
bothered
this.
with, she shouldn't have to have a doctor sitting there going, well, this is the reason why. It's private, Andy.
Yes. I don't think it's private, because
Sure
if
it
you're in
is.
the Olympics, we're in the US of A garb and going out for our country, it's public and everybody has an
It's
opinion.
not
And I'll tell you
public.
something else.
The public is
Tom
the
Brady,
performance. The performance
with
is the
Tom
public,
Brady,
but what happens
right.
in her life outside of the performance and outside of the balance beam and the gymnastics center is not anybody else's damn business.
Right. You're exactly right. But this
Right.
is part of the Olympics, the balance beam and every other performance. And the point is this, you would not see Tom Brady in the fourth quarter saying, I got a headache, I don't think I want to play anymore.
Come on, cut
That's
the
the
shit.
bottom
You're going to bring
line.
Tom Brady into this now?
Well, you know
I mean,
what?
every
She's
athlete
not.
is different. First of all, Tom Brady deals on a team where there's how many other dozens of players and coaches and individuals there to basically
He
prop
played
him
with
up
an
like
ACL.
everybody else. Gymnastics only has a few people sitting there, and they've got to deal with it in a one-on-one basis.
Tom Brady played with an entire season with the ACL and won the Super Bowl.
So
He had
what?
an ACL injury. The point is that he didn't quit. You got to forge on sometimes.
So
That's the
what?
bottom line.
Okay,
So what? You
let me
got
go
to forge on.
ahead.
Okay,
Let me
one
bring
last
Dan
thing.
into
Let me
this
just say
before
one
we get a
last
little
thing.
out of control because I'm already fired up with you on this one. Dan Jacobs, your take, go.
Well, I love Andy. I love listening to Andy when I'm driving around in my car here in Denver. Andy, you're wrong. There's
I
no
don't think there's a
right.
right and wrong here. I'll just say that.
Well,
Dave.
there
Go right ahead,
is.
but
No,
I don't think
no,
there's a
you're
right and
wrong.
wrong. I'm wrong
No,
in
you
your
are
mind. I
wrong.
don't think there's a right and wrong.
Well, I'm because this isn't about oh, there's some poor little girl that should have got to compete. Simone Biles is the best at what she does. There's no little patriotic girl back at home that should have got to compete. She's not better than Simone Biles. Simone Biles was the best. She should have been there to compete. And your insinuation that, oh, she knew she couldn't compete when she got to the Olympics. Simone Biles didn't go to the Olympics with some evil plan, hatching a plan to twist her mustache to not compete, and then just magically got the twisties. She wanted to compete. She got there, and then she couldn't compete, and then she did compete in the beam. She did, and she supported her teammates. At our station here in Denver, it's weird because we're in a different time right now, right? Like, so people can't really speak their mind because of the Me Too movements and things like that. If this were 10 years ago or 20 years ago, some of the hosts of my station would be, speaking in probably some abhorrent language, calling her out in some probably disgusting ways, calling her.
Which not on your station, but in a lot of places they certainly are already. There is still that abhorrent
Well,
language in there, and it's the secret code that's being used, and it's being
sure.
used by the right-wing news talkers who are in there going that, oh, well, if she was anybody else. I heard this, and I to be honest, Dan, I turned, but I didn't know who it was because I was listening on Sirius, so I couldn't identify the individual. But it was someone who said, well, if she was white, boom! I mean, right there. If she was white, nobody would have said anything.
Well, yeah.
Nonsense. And racist from the core.
So to Andy's point, there was nobody better than Simone Biles that deserved the opportunity to go to the Olympics.
I never
She's the
said that.
best. She's
She
the
is
well.
the
No,
best.
that's what you're getting at. You're like,
No, I was
well,
not getting that. I'm just
somebody
saying,
back home missed an opportunity because she bowed out. Well, she's the
right?
best,
It's
and she
true.
couldn't
She's
compete.
the
If she had
best.
twisted her
She's the
ankle,
GOAT.
and couldn't compete, you wouldn't be saying squat. But because she has a mental health injury, now you're calling her out, saying, "Well, she knew better. She knew she couldn't compete. This twisties thing is some things she knew about. She's concocting now or something." It's a flawed argument, and you should
Do
be
you mean
ashamed of
to tell
yourself,
me?
Andy. What are you doing? Come on, Andy.
Let
No,
me
do
bring
you
this
mean
in
to
here.
tell
First of all,
me?
let me say this medically here because none of us are doctors. We all play one on TV. Although if we
I'm
do
a
get down to
doctor. I'm a
lawyering,
juris doctor.
if we get down to lawyering, Dan is a lawyer, so that'll answer
I'm a
that.
juris doctor.
But here's this whole nonsense about the twisties. All of a sudden, everybody in America seems to be an expert on the twisties. Nobody heard this word. Very few people heard this word even before the Olympics. And the only reason it happened is because Simone Biles had the guts to put out on social media the actual video of where she was falling off the not off the balance beam, but off the uneven bars, and she could have hurt herself, and she was showing what was happening. Twisties has been around in gymnastics competition for decades, and it's what happens when there is an equilibrium imbalance or somebody loses their way. Guess what? It happens to every single athlete who has ever been a gymnastics competitor.
You're
Every
exactly
single
right.
one.
And
So
the
at this point
twisties,
it happens, and she says that she doesn't want to kill herself. What the hell's wrong with that? And
I
first of all,
understand it.
we're not experts. We're
And
not medical experts, Andy.
the twisties can be related very similar to the yips in baseball when Chuck Knobloch couldn't throw a baseball. I get it. But all I said, I didn't say she shouldn't compete. And I didn't say she's the greatest in the world because she is. All I'm saying is I don't think these twisties came overnight when she got to Tokyo.
Well, no,
She
they
may have
didn't.
seen this
Well,
developing.
no, they
That's all
didn't.
I'm saying.
But every
Okay.
athlete,
And then they
every
talk about
gymnastics competitor suffers from this at one time or another. So why should we then say that because it reached a point with her where she felt it was dangerous to her health and her competition, and not only that, but she felt it was dangerous to the team. She took
I
herself
agree.
out of competition because she didn't want to hurt the team, which then gave the spot to another athlete who had earned the right to be on the team
And what would
and
have been
earned the
wrong when
right
she
to
made
compete.
right.
Not
What
somebody
would be
sitting in
wrong if
Oshkosh,
she made
Wisconsin, who maybe could have been a gymnast somewhere who wasn't good enough to make the American team.
what would have been the big deal if she made that announcement in hand with a physician and her coach saying, with discussions here, and it would have taken away a lot of that heat
Why?
and that hate that she's been getting on social media. That's
Dan,
all I'm
I'm going
saying.
to tell you something. I hear what Andy is saying, but I don't think you could have had a cadre of doctors sitting there and psychologists. I don't think it would have made one bit of difference. The hate that is aimed at Simone Biles is from these right wing nuts and these knuckleheads who say that everything's patriotic. I got to tell you, I got into this huge simus with a few people on Facebook where I said, in different forms of social media, I love these people who scream patriotism. You knuckleheads wouldn't know what patriotism was if it reached up and bit you in the lip, because it's got to be exactly what their form of patriotism is. They say that she shamed America. How did she shame America, Dan? By basically doing what you should do, and that is to surrender a moment and hand it over to somebody when you know you can't compete at your finest.
Right. I mean, it would have been a different excuse if she would have bowed out before the Olympics. Oh, Simone Biles bowed out before the Olympics and whatever. I mean, it's silly. She has the right. She's the best. She has the right to make the decision when she needed to make the decision. If she would have bowed out before the Olympics, it would have been like, oh, she let down her team for a mental health issue. Critics are going to be critics whenever they want to be critics, period. She thought she could compete. She got there. She made the decision. She's the best, maybe the best ever to do it. And like you said, Ed, the person that stepped in for her at the Olympics was the person ultimately that was the best person to step in to compete for her. Some other, I hate to say it this harshly, some other inferior athlete, unknown athlete that would have taken her spot, hypothetical athlete down the line, would not have, what are we talking about? You know, she had the right to be there. She earned her spot on the team, and she later came back to compete. Like, this is all just hatred. She
But
I just
where
don't
does
see
this
what was
come
wrong with
from?
what she did.
But by the way, to
Okay,
this point, I want to point out one second,
is
Andy.
nothing.
Hang on one second. I
Okay.
want to point out to everybody that the fourth man in the room today is our viewers and our listeners and those who are out there watching us live on Facebook and on YouTube. Because if you're watching us on Facebook, Get on the comments. We can see them. If you're on YouTube Live, we can see them as well. My good buddy Matt Corey just wrote in, the alternates got an opportunity because she bowed out. That's why there are alternates, in case these things happen. So I think, Andy, that drops that argument right away. It stops it right there.
I'm not complaining that she dropped out because I don't want to see her hurt or break her neck. That I get.
Then why are
All
you
I'm
so
saying is
angry
that
about it?
she's not the first athlete to formulate and have pressure on her. And I'll go back in history. I lived in Cincinnati when Ken Griffey Jr. played for the Reds. He had to pump his stomach because he wanted to commit suicide. I'll go back to 1961 when Roger Maris was trying to break Babe Ruth's record in home runs. He lost his hair. Athletes have pressure, okay, to make her into a hero or a heroine because she did this. To me, I scratch my head and question why. Health-wise, yes,
But
you're
she
hurting,
is
you're
a
healthy,
hero, Andy,
stay healthy.
because look, you're talking about different athletes, different eras, different teams, different individuals. Everybody is an individual and is allowed to face their mental health issues and their physical health issues as they deem fit. How many athletes, gentlemen, have we seen over the years who have been shoveled into performing and damaged themselves to the point where their careers are never the same again, where they have been told to take the drugs, do whatever it takes, and they put themselves in a physical and a mental position where their careers are shortened because of it? Have we not reached a point of at least some sort of intelligence where we can say that it's not all about competing at this 110% level, which is bullshit to begin with, but it's about the athlete themselves being able to say, look, I can't perform at my best today because of what's going on right now, because the fact that my brother has been murdered or my mother has died or something has happened. What's wrong with that? Why don't we
There's
give them a
nothing
break?
wrong with that. And we see Kevin Love has done that in basketball. He stepped away and he went public with it. Is he a hero? I don't think so. I respect him for what he did. Look, I'm going to go one step further. I
Go
watched
ahead.
the Today Show the other day with Hoda Kotb, okay? And she was rambling on what a great person Simone Biles is because of the pressure of magazines and PR and TV and all this. And I said, wait a minute. Pressure? The pressure came from you and your network, NBC. Every freaking promo was Simone Biles. It was the
Well,
Simone Biles Olympics, okay? There was no track and field. And I'll tell you something else. Simone Biles emoji was a goat. She put that on her emoji. She even calls herself the GOAT.
Good for her. I hope she calls
And she
herself
is.
the greatest
And
of
she
all
is the
time
GOAT.
forever because she should. Hey, Dan, here we've got another issue here because we all work in the media. And the point Andy brings out is a very good one because NBC has traded on these individuals, the Caleb Dressels of the world, the Simone Biles of the world, the women's national team, the soccer team. They trade on them to make a tremendous amount of money. So if we're going to look at the reason why, and again, we're not psychologists, we just play them on TV, that somebody has this sort of pressure. You have the fact that the networks trade on them to make millions and billions of dollars. Of course, the athlete gets to make money too, because the more publicity they get, the more possibility they get to sign large sponsorship deals. But then you also have social media driving it, and the knuckleheads and nitwits behind social media. It is part and parcel a good reason why a lot of these athletes are stepping away these days because the demands placed on them, and Andy, this comes partially to what you're saying, are far, far and away what they were even 10 years ago. So, Dan, I think we've got to realize this too, that there's a media aspect in this that has to be discussed.
Well, I'll just say this. I will say that, and I'll get a little personal here, that during this pandemic, I have two teenagers. Um, Parenting them, the pressures for them, online school, being removed socially from schooling, online school. They were students, honor students. It's been very challenging. Mental health has been an extreme issue for us. It's been very tough. So to see Simone Biles, the greatest maybe ever in history, during the Olympics, her last Olympics, maybe her last competition, her last opportunity to ever do this at this level, to step back and say, I'm having trouble. I'm going to step back and I'm going to declare publicly that it's okay to take a break. It's okay to say I'm not okay. I admire that. Andy, I guess, is saying, so what? Other people have had trouble and they just said, rub some dirt on it and it's fine. And he doesn't care. And that doesn't impress him. To me, I think that takes courage and it impresses me. To him, he
No,
doesn't
I tell
care.
you what,
That's fine. But
I,
to
I
me,
don't want to put
I'm
words in
not
my
saying
mouth.
she's a hero. To me, I think it takes courage. It does impress me, and to me, it does send a message to people like my daughters, and I thank her. That's fine. If
Look,
he doesn't agree, that's
I
fine.
would wish you wouldn't put words in my mouth. I will tell you this much. I think Simone
You said
Biles
she's
has a
not a
hero.
hero, Andy. That's not putting
No,
words in your mouth. You said she's not a hero. Don't make her out to be a hero. That's what you
well, the
said.
point is this. I think
Those
she's
are
got a
your
pair
words.
of hanging down to step away. Does that make you a hero? In your mind, maybe it does. I have a lot of
I
respect
said
that she could
it
do
takes
that on
courage,
a
and I
stage
admire
like
it.
the
That's what I
Olympics.
said. You said
I
she's not a
admire.
hero.
On a stage like the Olympics, that you could do that on the world's largest stage, that you could say, and you train all your life for this, and to walk away, that's big. That's a big deal. I don't know how many people could do that. But the point is this: my initial point was that I think she probably had these twisties prior to going to Tokyo, and no one
But
knew
you
about
don't
it.
know that.
Okay, we don't know that, but I would venture to guess that it doesn't happen overnight. That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but what you're saying is, so what? So what if Wade Boggs had, the hamstring injury before the World Series and said, "I want to play through it"? What if, anybody has an injury going into a fight? What if Manny Pacquiao had the injury before going? Everybody paid $100 for a fight against, Floyd Mayweather. People have injuries going into athletic events. This
Right.
is an injury that she was the best ever, and she had the right to deal with it how she dealt with it, and she did. And you're trying to diminish her
See,
for
I
it
think that's it, Dan,
because
and I
because
think
you
you
wanted
might
the
have
10th alternate to have a chance.
you,
It's
you might have
silly.
nailed
It's
it
really
here
silly, Andy.
because it's not as if her arm is hanging off, or she's got 3 broken fingers, or she's got a concussion, or there's an ear missing, or something happening, or she's got a ripped knee. Because we, the gamblers in sports, a lot of them, and these people who absolutely want them to be perfect all the time, are going to say, "Oh, I can see that. Mental health? Ah, there's no such thing as mental health. Come on, suck it up, bite the bullet."
Well,
There's
that's
the
not what
bigger
Andy's
issue.
saying. That's not what Andy's saying either. What
Well, no,
Andy's
that's
saying
not what
is
he's saying, but I think that's
he's
an
saying
extrapolation that we have
he's
to go
saying she
to.
knew about it. She should, if she was going to step aside, she should have done it before because I don't know, the 10th alternate could have stepped in and had a shot.
No doubt. And I'll tell you
Whatever.
something else. And it
Which
could have
they
been
did.
handled.
The
It could have
alternate
been
did
handled
step
in
in.
such a better way. I mean, honestly, I think the fact that she stood up without any assistance, that's a lot of guts. But if she would have stood up, I'm telling you, with a medical person and her coach, said we had a discussion,
I don't know
it's
why
the
that.
best, the best for
I don't know
her
why
and her
that's
health to step
a
away.
big deal. That's not going
I
to
think
be
it would
any.
have taken away a lot of heat on her. She's got a lot of heat. Deserving seal? I don't know. I don't know
Look,
if it's deserving or not.
there's something here which I think maybe we should create a delineating line here, and there's the words that I'm hearing tossed around: hero and courage. And those are two very different words with very different meanings. Look, the old saying is a hero ain't nothing but a sandwich. And I think too often that in America we worship these athletes as if they are heroes, they're gods. They're not. They're fallible, they make mistakes. And I think it's terrible when we have kids look up to somebody, just an athlete, as a hero. They're not the heroes. The heroes, of course, are a lot closer to us in our lives, our parents, the people that we deal with, the people who inspire us. What these athletes are is courageous, in my mind, for what they do and how they force themselves through injuries when they have it. The courage to be able to say, it's not going to happen today. Let me give it to somebody who can win for the country. And then the inspiration that they can have to the young girls, the young boys, the people across the country and around the world. I think that's more important. Maybe we need to get off this whole hero nonsense. Stop using this word and use the word that's more important: courage and
Never
inspiration.
happened with athletes. As long as there are kids adoring athletes, they'll always be considered
Well, that's got to
heroes.
stop. Whose fault is that?
Right. And I will say this: I don't want to see anyone, including Simone Biles, hurt. And for her stepping away to prevent a possible life threatening injury, it's a great move. We're discussing how she stepped away, not because she stepped away, how she stepped away. And I think the process, being a former PR guy, I would tell you, I would have handled it differently. I would have had to go out there, make
Okay,
it
but that's a PR guy in what era? The 80s?
today.
No,
Today,
but
right now, today.
when you were the PR guy, you would have handled it differently. And today, it could have been handled differently, maybe. But how? Look,
I'll tell you how,
from the
because
PR standpoint, she didn't hide a thing. She came right out and said,
I'm
and she
I'm
was
not saying
backed
she
up by the
should.
team and backed up by the U.S. Gymnastics Association, that she was not going to compete. I don't see where there's anything
Yeah.
wrong with that. She didn't hide it.
Right, but the point is that when she is the lone person out there, she's going to take all the bullets, and she has. If she was out there with a doctor and/or an Olympic official,
I don't know
the
why
Olympic
you keep
official.
harping on that, because I don't know why that's important at all. I don't think that would have made a damn bit of
Well,
difference.
you brought up the fact that she's getting killed on social media. There's a lot
Well,
of
she is getting killed
knuckleheads
on
that you
social
see
media. I
out
don't know
there.
why having a doctor there would make any difference. What's the doctor going to say? Mental health. The only thing you're going to say is, look, I've been treating Simone for 12 years and she has a severe mental health issue. First of all, I'm not going to make that public if I'm the individual. There's no reason. And again, I'll go back to what Caleb Dressel said. It's nobody's business. It's not our business, Andy.
I think it's our business when there's an event that involves the world, it involves our country. It is in other words, if I go home tonight and I have a mental breakdown, I probably will get some exposure on
Well,
it
that's because
because
you've worked in
someone
radio
of
and
a public
television,
figure.
so that happens.
Yeah, I know someone of a public figure, but if your next door neighbor, Ed, or Dan, your next door neighbor has a mental issue that he has to do something about, no one's going to know about it except maybe his boss or his family. That's basically it. When you're in the public limelight, everything goes. You know that because of the life
Then
we live
that's
in now.
wrong.
Everything goes.
That's wrong, then. It
I don't know
shouldn't
what's right or wrong,
affect
but that's the
anything.
way it is.
Look,
It may
let's
be
be
wrong, but
honest,
that's the way
guys.
it is.
Mental health is the issue that nobody wants to talk about in this country. They want it shoveled into the corner. Nobody wants to say anything about it because nobody wants to understand or realize that there's mental health all around us. There is depression, there is anger, there is fear, there is the desire to want to be better, the inability to be able to be better, social issues, economic issues, mental health, every single one of us. And look, I'm going to speak from experience now, having it in my family and in my circle. Every single person has a mental health issue. Is it huge? No. Is it debilitating? Maybe not. But everybody has a mental health issue because nobody's perfect.
Right. But no one knows about it for the members in your family. But if you're an athlete or you stay on a big stage, you'll know about it.
But
And it
why
is.
should we give a shit if anybody's... Well, I got to be honest about it.
Right, according to your logic, then Simone Biles should have just quit. Don't say anything about mental health.
But she
If no one
felt,
knows about it.
but she felt there's
Right?
the courage
That's what you're
factor.
saying.
There's the courage factor. Dan, that's when she wanted to come out and say something here. And I think that shows an individual that should be admired for taking that stand.
And I do.
And then lining herself up for those bullets.
I don't think I could do that publicly. Really. I don't think I could. I don't think many people could.
Okay.
And what she did, I commend her for doing that on twofold.
There
Number
you
one,
go.
for doing it and for avoiding potential life-threatening. She could be crippled on a situation like that. However, I do believe that this could have been prevented because I think she could have had these twisties prior to Tokyo. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. And it may come out. We may find out down the road that she had it prior to.
We're dealing in a different community in Denver, Colorado. In Denver, when I lived there, a very different community, very forgiving in many ways. I'm curious if the venom is as noticeable in Denver as it is around the country.
Well, all I can tell you is what I said at the beginning of the conversation was, some of the former athletes that are on my station, you could tell they were holding back a little bit, but as former football players, they felt she was letting her teammates down, and they felt that, they didn't like what she was doing.
I think athletes feel that way.
Well,
and I wouldn't be surprised if you...
Look, the other side of it is, and what Dan is talking about here is, he's talking about football players. This goes back to the whole macho bullshit era of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, which is still permeated to this day, that football players are the toughest athletes
these are players
in the world.
that played,
I got news for you. They can't
yeah.
hold a candle to hockey players, but that's another story. But I mean, it's this whole, everybody has got to be this macho individual, and everybody's...
Well, hold on, Ed.
No,
hold on. I'm gonna take issue then, because
Good.
you were the one that was railing against the Nazem Kadri hit, which is a pretty standard hockey check, and you were railing at the top of your lungs. Oh my goodness!
No, it wasn't. He
you
gave
were
it a
railing
lot
at the
extra
top.
there. There
If
was a lot
if
of
this
extra.
is a free for all podcast,
Go.
oh my God! If you were talking about bloviating, the bloviating you were doing about that Nazem Kadri hit in the Avalanche series in the first round, that was a pretty standard in the 80s or 90s, a pretty standard hockey
in the 80s
check.
and 90s, but not in the double O's of the teams.
Oh my
It's
God!
not, because you don't want to kill somebody.
Even the wording from the NHL said, yes, we understand he was trying to deliver a hard check. And oh my God, what Ed Berliner was saying about like it was like he was trying to decapitate him, like it was Marie Antoinette back in
It was a
the
dirty hit.
day.
It was a
It
dirty
was a
hit.
dirty
It
hit.
wasn't. It was
It was
not
a dirty hit. It was a dirty hit.
He was. Come
I
on.
wish I would have
mean,
known this because I could have had the video up on this to be able to show, but it was an absolute
Pull
look.
the
Everybody can go back
video.
and look at it. It was
I
a
had
dirty
Scott
was a
hit.
dirty
Masters.
hit.
It was outside of the rules.
In
It was
1980,
slightly.
it wouldn't have been a dirty hit. Today's a dirty hit.
It was slightly. It was ill advised. It was a dumb play. I
Ill-advised.
said I had a former hockey coach on. He said it was. He tried to say it was a dirty hit. I said, oh, it's a dirty hit. I said, well, what did he hit him with? What part of his body did he hit him with? Did he hit him with the head? I mean, well, he kind of twisted his shoulder, kind of made contact. Like, go
This
look at that.
is trying to absolutely injure
Oh,
somebody.
so
and
Ed, he
do
hit him
it.
with his elbow.
Come
Ed,
on, when
he
you
hit him with his
look,
elbow.
I'm saying when you
He
go
wanted
in
to
here,
hurt him.
there is a way to have
He
a hockey.
wanted
There's
to
a way
hurt
to
him.
deliver a
Oh,
hockey
there's a
hit. That was
way.
dirty.
Yeah, he was trying to trying to deliver a forceful check. Is
But
actually what the
let's go
language
back to
said.
the initial question that you brought up. The initial question was
Right.
the mindset of an athlete to forge on your football
Right.
players. To
No, I'm just saying, if we're doing a free
And
for
I'm gonna
all,
tell you this
and
much.
Ed wants to talk about these tough guys, I'm just saying, Ed,
Okay.
I'm calling BS on you a little
You
bit.
can call
I-
BS
because
on me,
Ed,
but I'll tell you what, I've been around him a long time. So have you. We both have. But I know full well that I'm sick and tired of the BS macho crap that comes out of a lot of these athletes. That, well, I could do it. I wouldn't do it. Wouldn't hurt me. You can go ahead and rip my elbow off and I'll go ahead and play. Fine, good, go ahead. But don't expect everybody else to do it. It's not like everybody else has to follow your lead. And most of them
Right.
do it because they all have this ideal that they want to be big time, that they all want to have that little extra. It's a macho nonsense, Dan.
Well, you
well,
tell
but by the
him.
way, were any of those athletes raped by the team doctor? By the
Well,
way,
okay.
you know,
See, now you're going into the other issue here, which we can talk about,
Right.
which is
Okay,
Simone
all right.
Biles. When we talk about mental health and when we talk about the issues that are going on, we talk about gymnastics in itself because the U.S. Gymnastics Federation has lost control of this sport now for decades. I mean,
were they
this isn't
abused
anything
by
new.
Bella Caroli? You know, I mean, were they abused by their coach? Were they raped
Sure.
by the team doctor? You know,
Okay.
all
He
these
wasn't
NFL
alone on that.
players are
Though.
saying
He wasn't
that
alone.
they.
But let me tell you something also about this machoism. You know, you could call it machoism. I call it peer pressure. And to a woman on
Okay.
that gymnastics team, I promise you, one-on-one, you get these girls in a room, and there's at least one of those girls on that team that say Simone Biles let us down. I promise you that, okay? Because that's just the mindset of athletes. I don't care what the sport is, especially a team sport. When you're counting on someone, it's a domino effect, and she broke the chain. That's all I'm saying. In the mindset of her teammates. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think there's one of her teammates that's upset at Simone Biles. Not
We'll
one.
never know that. We'll never know that.
We'll never know it publicly, of course, but I'll bet you damn
Are we
sure that
right?
it's going to come out very quickly because I can tell you
You know
from
what's
there's
happening?
two.
I'll tell you what's happening.
All I'm going to
In the
tell you is
next
there's
2
two
years.
reporters I know who are in Tokyo that have been
Okay.
covering gymnastics in the Olympics for decades, and I have heard from both of them. And these are individuals who speak to the athletes off the record. And they have told me quite frankly that there is not one athlete or one coach on the gymnastics team that is upset with Simone Biles. Not one.
And I'll bet you $1 to a donut within the next 2 years, one of her teammates is going to write a book and tell the story.
We're going to see.
That I bet you. Okay?
I would doubt that's going to happen, but it could. Okay, we got a long way to go, short time to get there. So let's go ahead and get it to you, gentlemen, because now it is time for, before we get to all the other stuff that will close us out and a couple of things there is some hockey in the show that I'm going to get to, which will be interesting for the lawyer. There's also a little bit about the ASPCA and another story I want to get to as well. So let's do this.
Oh, by the way, I have art on the dog story.
You have what?
Artwork or footage.
Okay. Really? I didn't know that. Okay, we'll get to that. Dan, seeing as you have called me out, which I love, you go right ahead and do it anytime you'd like. I'm going to go now ahead and give the solo shot to you because I started this off with what's on my mind with Simone Biles, and that took off the conversation here, and the free-for-all went and ran rampant here. So now it's your turn. Dan Jacobs, go ahead. It's your solo shot.
Oh, well, no, because first off, I do want to say, Ed, I'm very sorry for your loss. I know that you love your puppies, and
Thank you.
I'm not sure which dog it was, Magnus or the other one, but
It was Gunner. It was Gunner. He was
Gunner.
our first L-count, second L-count. Yeah.
So I am very sorry on that, but this was a very popular topic on the show, and I had it pulled up. So we have a just so you know what a good guy I am, because I spend quite a bit of time telling my listeners what a good guy I am. And I don't know if you heard me. I had to mute myself earlier on the show, and I had this thing pulled up here just a moment ago. We have a bulldog boxer mix. We got really lucky. We were actually talking about mental health issues for my daughters. We actually got a puppy to help one of my daughters through the thing here. But I don't know why, because I think I'm actually a pretty darn good host. But I have just a couple people that just you call them haters, on the text line, things like that. But I said tonight's your night, because I got this photo. And I said, tonight's your night during one of the nights I was hosting the show, because I'm actually hemorrhaging thousands of dollars live on the air, live on the radio. And I'm sorry, guys, I had this photo queued up for you. Thousands of dollars as my puppy was destroying my floors live on the air. And my wife sent me this photo. And the puppy's still alive. Here it is.
You lost a photo that your wife sent you. Okay, there you go.
See,
Okay.
can you see this?
Hang on a sec. Go ahead. Hold it up. Just there you go. Yeah, we see him.
See my floors?
Nice.
And the dog is alive. I actually had him up here, but then the exterminator came and he was barking, so I didn't want to interrupt the podcast.
Who cleaned it up, Dave?
Cleaned it up. I have to replace the flooring in the entire house. And
so what's the point? So I guess the issue here is you didn't train your puppy well enough, so your puppy has anxiety and your puppy tore up the carpet. So in essence, is it not your fault instead of the puppy's?
No. You're using the wrong pronoun, Ed. There's a contract. Daughter needs puppy for therapy. Daughter says, I will beg you for months and months and months. I will do this. I will do that. Well, puppies, as Ed Berliner said, need exercise. It's a great dog. I mean, such a great dog. Like you said, boxer, bulldog mix. I mean, that's a dream dog.
Looks like he's pretty healthy too.
Oh yeah, he's a great dog.
Well, he
needs exercise. He needs exercise. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'll walk him every day, Daddy.
He needs a diaper. That's what he needs.
But wait a minute. Okay, how old is your daughter?
17 now.
17.
What?
Well, when she got the dog and you got the dog for, how old was she?
17. This is a puppy.
Okay, so at 17,
immediately she's done nothing. Done nothing. This dog is a puppy still. He's still here.
Dan, you're actually telling me that you're an adult and you're the father of a 17-year-old and you expect them to follow through on everything they say to you? My God, Jacobs!
Not everything. I'm saying something. So we got this puppy, and we actually laughed because she was like a newborn mother. Like when you bring a baby home from the hospital, like she didn't sleep. We're like, oh, it's so cute. Like she didn't sleep. That lasted for like a week, and that was it. Like she's checked out. And then, by the way, she got a boyfriend, and so now this puppy is full on ours. That puppy sleeps in our bed. We take it out all the time, and so now the puppy's completely on us. But now, it's destroyed our floors, and
but your mistake was this.
But it is on
Dan,
you.
Your mistake. You should have got goldfish instead of a puppy.
First of all, there is no such thing as a bad dog. There's no such thing. It is the owner. When a dog misbehaves, it's because the owner did not train the dog properly, and the owner did not train themselves. And how do I know this? I've done all this reading. I've been through this because I got 2 dogs and I trained them, and I trained Gunner. See, but
Here's the good one. Here's the good guy. That's Buster.
Look at Buster.
He's an empath. He knows how to speak. He stops arguments between my wife and I. He's the good one. He's the old guy. But
okay. So, but you do realize the fallacy of you're trusting a 17-year-old to follow through on responsibility. You do
we screwed up. We screwed up.
No, you didn't screw up because you still have the puppy.
Oh yeah.
And you're giving the puppy a good home. Okay. Mr. Furman, I throw it to you now. Because
I'm just saying I'm a hero because that dog's still alive and still in the house.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
Well,
you're
I'm
just a
glad.
good
I'm
guy.
glad Dan brought up.
That's all it is.
First of
Andy,
all, I
so
do have.
it's your
I
turn
have a
here,
dog.
Andy. For anything you want, anything on your mind, anything, it's time to go because we got other things we got to handle here. But
Okay.
what is sitting in the crook of Andy Furman
I'll
today,
make it
other
quick.
than
First of all,
Simone Biles?
I'm a dog lover as well, and I have a Chinese pug who's 14 years of age, and the dog can't see or hear. But I love the dog dearly, and we take care of him. He's a good boy. Good boy. Okay. You talk about artwork. I saw some artwork the other day that made me vomit. Not your artwork, Dan, but some artwork. It was a picture of Miss Rapinoe and her teammate. Megan Rapinoe was kneeling, and next to her was an African-American teammate with her hand on her heart. Okay? And I ask you this question. Was it wrong for me to root for Canada to beat the US of A because of her? I want to know. I mean, I've had some nightmares about that. Now, my wife is Canadian, so we're celebrating in my house, okay? My wife's a Canadian citizen, so I was sort of happy with that 1-0 win over the US of A. But the Megan Rapinoe situation, stop using athletics and sports to push your own agenda. I'm not against her agenda. I don't care what the agenda is. But stop it. It's making me sick, and I think it makes a lot of other people sick as well. And that picture, to me, was the most disgusting picture I've seen in my life. She's kneeling.
What was disgusting about it to you? What was disgusting? No, what's
because I think that when you have American garb on, when you're representing the country, you need to follow the rules of that country. And for example, there are rules to follow. We don't follow rules anymore in this country. For example,
what's the rule here that you broke?
Okay, here's a rule. I go to McDonald's. I ask the guy, I want to get a hamburger on a bagel. I can't. You know why? Because they're served on sesame seed buns. That's the rule.
No, wait a minute.
Okay. Whoa. You want to get a hamburger on a bagel?
If I wanted to. I'm just giving an example.
You can't get a hamburger on a bagel, Andy. You need to move to China.
But I'm going to bring you back here. Stop with the whataboutism. What rule did she break?
I didn't say she broke a rule.
No, you did. You did. You said there were rules. Okay. So what rule did Megan Rapinoe
There are
break?
rules in the International Olympic Committee. There are guidelines. I've read them. I read them in today's New York Times.
What's the rule?
Go to Dan for a second. I'll get the rule out. I'll get the rule. Go ahead. Go to Dan. Okay. I'll find that rule.
Because there is no rule. There is no rule here.
Well, what Andy is saying is there are rules that if you're going to compete for the Olympic team, you're not supposed to kneel. So what he's saying is there are rules, there are guidelines, and she broke them.
Well, but hang on a sec. This is another.
Today's New York Times.
That opens up here. There is no rule that says you must stand for the national anthem. It's not issued by the USOC. It's not issued by the IOC.
Well, he's saying there is. He's saying there's a guideline that
New York
says you cannot
Times,
kneel.
You have to be respectful of the anthem.
I'll read you the rule.
But in their mind,
today's New York
they're respectful.
Tuesday, August 3rd. The International Olympic Committee, which prohibits demonstrations on the podium or during competition, said on Sunday night that an athlete's National Olympic Committee is required to issue any required punishment. U.S. officials have said they will not punish any athlete for exercising the right to free speech that does not express hatred. There's the rule right there.
Okay,
today's New York Times.
That's absolute, stunning, incredible, undeniable bullshit. And I'm going to go ahead and break that down for you here right now. Because you're saying that according to what you just read, they're saying that she cannot issue a protest. She is not protesting in the eyes of many. She is doing what she feels is right to honor America.
No, he didn't say that. He said demonstration. He didn't say protest, the demonstration. You're changing his words.
I got the attorney here.
Protest.
I got the judge on my side.
You did.
Read it again, Andy.
Read it again. You said protest.
Read it
again. The International Olympic Committee, which prohibits demonstrations on the podium or during competition, said Sunday night that an athlete's National Olympic Committee is required to issue any required punishment, okay? And it says the IOC and the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee have conflicting rules and views regarding the exercise of free speech during the games.
Okay, I will back up and say I misspoke then and I got it wrong. I used the word protest. I'm going to come back and I will use your word demonstrations. Why is it a demonstration?
It was not my word.
Wait a minute. You just read the word as part of your
saying
it's not mine.
These are the rules.
It's not a demonstration if somebody is honoring America or deciding that they want to kneel instead of stand? There is absolutely
kneeling is
nothing
a demonstration.
That says that they have to stand. It's
I'm
not
the judge.
there.
I'm the judge. I'm issuing a ruling. Kneeling is a demonstration. Yes.
Thank you.
For the purposes,
that's your opinion.
For the purposes of this podcast, yes, it's a demonstration.
That's your opinion. And what's wrong with it? There is nothing that says she has to stand. That's what I want. Show me where it says that she has to stand for the national anthem. That's all. If you show me that,
Because
it's over and
kneeling
I'm
is a
wrong.
demonstration.
Where does
Kneeling
it
to
say
the
that she
flag is
has
a
to stand?
demonstration.
And what is wrong? Because if it's America, and if we're allowed to make our choices, and if America is all about freedom,
This isn't America. This is IOC.
no. But
We're
she's
talking
on the
about we're
American
talking about
team.
IOC guidelines.
But we're
IOC
talking
rules.
about also the
IOC.
American team because
Ed, you're
Andy
not going to
wanted
get
do
out
that
of
as
this
well.
one. You're not going to win this one, Ed. You're really not.
No, I am
because
going to win
it
this
is,
one.
No,
Because
because it's known that when the flag is risen, when there's when the Star Spangled Banner is played at the Olympics, you stand. Every
where
freaking
is that
athlete
a
stands.
rule, Andy? Show me that. I just want to see that in print. Show me where it says you have to stand.
There has
for
to be a rule to stand for the national anthem.
Why
That's
not?
a rule.
You're talking
It's
about
given,
rules.
Ed.
It's not.
Oh my
it's
God.
it's how these individuals look. It's how these individuals want to honor, demonstrate, protest. First of all, you're allowed to demonstrate and protest in America if you'd
You're
like to.
pushing
That's what
this too
freedom's
far.
all about.
I'm not
This
even going
isn't
to argue.
America, Ed. Ed, I'm not taking a position on this, but you know it's a demonstration, and a
If it is,
demonstration
go
is
right
against the
ahead.
rules.
What's the problem with it?
Well,
You're
the
not
problem
supposed to.
it's against the rules.
Says who?
It's
right?
against the IOC
That's
rules.
the
We read
IOC.
it. The
IOC
IOC
says
does
it's
not
against
want
the
it to
Those rules
happen.
are so incredibly vague. It
Oh,
doesn't
now they're
say
vague.
she
They're
has
not
to
vague.
stand.
They're not vague. It says
You know why
demonstration.
they're vague? They're vague because they're not.
They're
They don't
vague because
enforce
it
it.
calls
That's why
something
they're
a
vague.
demonstration. It doesn't say specifically that kneeling is a demonstration.
You just said it was, Ed. You
No,
know
no,
it
no.
is.
Wait a
You
minute.
just
I'm
said
going
it
back.
was.
Hang on. I'm going back to the rule that he read. The rule itself does not say that demonstration is a protest. It doesn't say that. It
Okay,
also
You
so when
just
the
said,
national football,
Andy, hold on. Andy, Ed, you just said it was because you know it
no.
is.
I
And if it
said
went
it's a
to a hearing,
if she wants it to
and
be a
and if
protest
you
or a
s-
demonstration. But what
and
is
if
a
it were to go
specific?
to a hearing, and if it were to go to a hearing before the IOC,
Comes the judge.
they would determine it was a demonstration.
Of
Colin
course it was.
Kaepernick would say it was a demonstration.
Thank
Megan
you.
Rapinoe would say it was a demonstration.
Okay.
There's nobody, no reasonable person, no trier of fact would say it was anything other than a demonstration. There's no
Correct.
And you
colorable
still can't
argument to
show me
say
where it says she has
there
to
is
stand.
no colorable argument to say it's not a demonstration.
You still
If
cannot
you're
tell
trying
me
to say
where
it's
it
so
says she has
vague,
to
if you're
stand.
trying to say it's so vague that it's not a demonstration,
It is.
then you're not being reasonable.
I
And
am.
so it's
I
really
think I
falling
am,
flat.
and I'm still trying to wait. And I have the two of you sitting here, and nobody has shown me where it says she has to stand.
Okay, I'll ask you
It
a question.
it doesn't say you can't stand, but what you're saying is so
Thank you.
outside the bounds of logic. There's
Right.
nobody that would read that and say what she did is not
I,
a
for the life of
demonstration.
me, cannot
She would
figure
tell
out
you it's a
why.
demonstration. Everybody that saw what she did would say it's a demonstration. What you're trying to do is make an argument that is so far outside the bounds of logic
Right.
that nobody's
It's
going to
just
believe it.
vague.
Not
You're
outside
not
the
going to win
bounds
this
of
one.
logic. I want somebody to tell
How
me
many
why.
athletic
Here's
events
what
have
I
you gone
want.
No,
to?
I want
Ed,
everybody
what
to
you're
tell me
saying
why
is,
they're
Ed,
so
what your real
upset
point
when she
is, you don't,
kneels for the
Ed,
anthem.
what you're saying is you don't think there's anything wrong with what she did.
Correct.
And so what you're really trying to do is stretch the logic of the rule to bend it to what your belief is. Your belief is
Right.
really you don't think there's anything wrong with what she did. So now
No.
you're trying to say, well, then I think we can bend the rules to fit my argument. But the rule is the rule.
I'm saying that again. Demonstration. Tell me what the demonstration is. Now, if
The
you're going to show me
demonstration
that
is
the
Kneeling
kneeling
is
is
a
a demonstration,
demonstration.
point it out. Make specific.
Kneeling is a demonstration, Ed, period.
Okay.
Because
Ed, you
normal
already
I'll
people.
surrender
said
on that.
Ed, you already said kneeling is a demonstration. Now you're trying to
I'll
backtrack.
surrender. Yes, I did.
Right.
I said that.
Okay.
So
So
there
in
you
other
go.
words, in your
But then-
mind,
But then
if
what
it's
are
a
we
free
arguing about,
country,
Ed?
you have to stand for an anthem.
Ed,
Okay,
what are we
let's-
arguing
let-
about? You already admitted it's a demonstration. What are we
Where does
arguing
it
about?
say you have to stand for the anthem?
Okay, then don't stand. Let me go one step further.
Okay.
What if on the stage when they have the performance of the national anthem and the gold medal ceremony, someone takes a match and lights the flag up? Is that okay
come
too?
on, Andy. That's
If you burn the flag?
Oh,
That's
come
What's the
on,
difference?
Ed. Where does it say you can't light the flag on fire, Ed?
If
Well,
you burn
okay.
the flag,
It doesn't say
because
that.
it-
Nobody's
It
going
doesn't
to
say
do
you
that.
can't light the
You
flag.
can't.
Where
Now
does
you
Burn
it
guys
the
are
flag.
say
extrapolating
you
to
can't
fit your own
shoot?
needs.
Where does it
No,
say you
I'm
can't
not.
shoot the competitors in the heart?
And
I
you're
would say
jeez.
when you're going
doesn't say you
against the
can't do
grain,
that,
Ed,
Ridiculous.
she's going against the grain.
Ridiculous.
And you know as well as I do, every event that you've gone to in athletics, you've stood for the national anthem prior to the game. Why?
sure about
Because
that?
it's understood.
You
Because
sure
it's
about
understood.
that? You're
Did
sure
you ever
about that?
kneel? Have you ever kneeled?
You're sure about
Have
that?
you ever kneeled?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I'm asking you. Have you ever kneeled before
Yes.
the national anthem?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Huh?
Why'd you kneel?
I knelt because I felt it was an honorable thing to do, and I felt it was a way to honor America. It was my way of saying, I have no
No.
problem with this.
No, I mean, honoring America is not kneeling. That's that's
Really?
just not the way it
Why?
is. Yeah. Now it's like saying I'm driving my car. I feel like going through a red light because I like red. I'm
No,
going to go
that's
through
bullshit.
red.
That's bullshit.
No, it's not. What you're saying is bullshit. Really, you kneel because it's the right thing to do.
I
It's
didn't
not the
say it
right
was the
thing
right
to do.
thing to do. I
You said you
felt that at
felt
the
it was the right
moment,
thing.
I
You said
felt that
you
it was
honored America
honorable.
by kneeling.
I felt it was honorable to do. And I still don't know
Well,
why
good.
people have a problem with it at all. Because if we're America and we're allowed to express ourselves in certain
Here's
ways, what's the
okay.
issue?
So here's the deal with because Ed, you're not being honest about
You're
it
not.
because
Oh, I think I
you're
am.
trying to be, you're
No.
trying to dance around the issue, Ed, which is odd for you because you're really most of the time a straight shooter, but you're really trying to be coy here.
No, I'm not.
And you're normally you're
Ask
a
me a
real
direct
straight shooter,
question, Dan. Go ahead.
but you're not being direct, Ed.
Ask me
You're
the
really
direct
not.
question. I already told you. You
Um,
told me
but
that
I'm
about
no. Well, I'm
demonstrations. If
just
you
gonna.
want to call it a demonstration, go right ahead.
I'm going to tell you. Here's the issue I've had. The kneeling came about really as a compromise because Colin Kaepernick was sitting, which was really disrespectful. He wanted to use the anthem as a way to protest police brutality and something that needed to be addressed. He wanted to use his platform, right? And he wanted as a quarterback in the NFL, he wanted to say, how can I use my position to try and influence change? And that was admirable. The issue I always had was what you're trying to do though is you're trying to do something that you know is going to be offensive to people. You're going to take something that you really care about and you're going to really trying to hurt people's feelings. You're really going to try to be offensive to people. And what he hold on, stop, Ed. He had a conversation. I don't remember the guy's name with a teammate that had served in the military, and they came together. And the kneeling was, meant to be respectful. It was, a member that served in the military and said, if you want to be respectful, kneel. And so the kneeling was supposed to be a compromise. Kneel during the anthem. Don't sit on your butt and really be offensive and insulting. And Kaepernick said, okay, well, I'll do that. Would you kneel with me? And that teammate said, no, I serve the flag. I can't kneel with you, but I will, support you in the way I can, and say you kneel. So it's supposed to be, kneeling is supposed to be a more respectful way to say, I need to raise these issues because I want to use this platform to raise these issues. So
Right?
I see kind of the compromise there. But that's the way it's supposed to go. So I want to say that because Ed, you're not being as direct as you should be.
No, I am, Dan, but that's okay. Well, we're going to agree to disagree on this one
No, hold
because I
on.
think I've
How
been
are you
quite
being
upfront.
direct? Tell me how you're being direct. Would you wear socks like Colin Kaepernick did, pigs
No.
in a blanket?
No,
Okay, fine. But see, the whole problem is this:
I
not what
disagreed
they
with that.
did.
I disagreed with that with him wearing the socks. I actually spoke out about it many times. I thought it was the wrong
Okay,
thing to do. I thought it was crossing a line. I still think
and the
that.
problem is this: the problem is not what they stand for and what their beliefs are, because I could care less what they believe in. The
Well,
problem
maybe
is
you
that
should.
no. The commissioner Roger Goodell permitted them to do this because once you have an NFL uniform on, you belong to the NFL, and you do what the NFL says.
You
You want to wear
belong to
socks.
the NFL.
You're part of the
That's a poor
NFL
choice of words,
community.
Andy. I
You're,
believe.
you're part of the NFL community. Yes, you're an employee. You can't go to work in your environment wearing a Nazi swastika, could you? They throw you the hell out. So why are they letting Colin Kaepernick or anybody else
I'm not even
do
going to
their?
address that. That's so ludicrously
No,
incorrect.
it's not. If Colin Kaepernick wants to wear those socks outside the stadium when he's not wearing a uniform, God bless him. Let him do it. Let them do whatever they want. But once you're inside the uniform, you're part of the organization and follow the organization rules, which Roger Goodell never let them do. They walked all over him because Roger Goodell didn't have the hangy downs to tell these guys what to do. And you don't agree with that. You don't agree with that.
Agree with what?
And that's why fans were
Roger
turned
Goodell
off.
didn't have the balls to do it. Roger Goodell was worried about balancing everything because he has an organization where he has to make sure that people are being served and that everybody is getting the chance to get their 2 cents in there. Was he punished?
Oh, is
Yes,
that
he
right?
was.
Okay, where's the
And there's a
Italian
lot of guys
national
who break
anthem?
rules, by the way,
Where's
when
the
it comes to
Italian national
uniforms. I
anthem
know that
being
guys
played?
like Brady and others have broken rules before in uniforms, and I don't hear you
It's not
calling that out.
breaking rules, Ed. I mean, they're
It
playing
is. That's
the
what you're
African
saying. They
American
belong to
national.
the NFL. Let's go back to that
They
one. They
do.
belong to the
They
NFL.
do. They're part of the NFL. They do. Okay, they're playing the African American national anthem this year. Why aren't they playing the Italian national anthem too before the game? The Israeli national anthem. Really? Where's Nick Buoniconti now? Let him come out there and protest with the Italian national anthem. It doesn't make any sense. You can't please everybody.
Dan?
I don't know where to go with the other extra national anthems. I just,
Are you happy with
we
me?
don't have to play.
You don't think you should have
They
pissed
have a
people off?
well, I mean, they have a collective bargaining agreement. You have to abide by certain rules with your employers. I agree by that, but
Right.
I mean, this thing has gotten so complicated. The problem here's the problem, right? I disagreed to a point where it was like I just didn't like. Listen, I'm a defense attorney, at certain points, right? Like I fight against police brutality and injustice. I fight for the rights of the downtrodden every day. I just never initially. I never really. I liked the way initially Colin Kaepernick approached it. Because I just knew it was aimed to be inflammatory and offensive to certain people in the military and things like that.
And the
However,
fan base.
you get
And the fan
what
base.
and the fan base, right? It was meant to inflame people. There was a reason that Martin Luther King advocated for nonviolence, right? Like you could be like Malcolm X initially was, and you can riot and you could be violent, but then you get to a certain point with like George Floyd and things like that where you're like, how much is enough, right? Like you'd say, I did a podcast with Jeff Wolf with Ed Berliner before, where it's like you push certain populations to a point, and I think it was MLK where it's like violence. I think the quote is, violence is the voice, outrage is the voice of the unheard, right? They strike out because of they're just not being heard. That's why you see riots. That's why you see neighborhoods being burnt down. That's why you see looting. It's not because they want free sneakers. It's because it's rage. It's because we've seen a man choked out and murdered, and one cop saying you need to get off the dude's neck because he's dying, and well, he should have thought about that or whatever. And nothing's being done about it. You see a guy being stopped for a traffic stop, he's running away, and an officer shooting him in the back, and it's on video, and the cop's not being charged. We see video after video. Eventually these communities are going to strike out. They're going to rage out. And so it's like, okay, well, it's not okay for Colin Kaepernick to kneel. That's just unacceptable. That's beyond the pale. We just cannot deal with that. Megan Rapinoe, she just cannot do that. That's, oh my God. That's disgusting. That's unpatriotic. We cannot deal with that. Well, then what do you want these communities to do?
Nice to see you've come around, Dan. This is the point I was making earlier, which is exactly what you argued with me on. It becomes a matter when you kneel, and when I did, I kneeled because I felt it was the right thing to do. And we're sitting here as a bunch of three old white guys sitting here talking about this. And
No, two old white guys.
No, you're still you're still getting, you're over 30, dude. You still get in the old side. Don't worry about it. And it's true. These are points that have to be made. Look, I go back to Juan Carlos and Tommy Smith, two gentlemen whom I have more respect for than I could possibly imagine, who stood at the Olympic Games in 1968 and ruined both of their careers simply by standing there with a fist raised to try and point out the fact that America is not as wonderful as everybody likes to think it is
And what's
at all
happened
times.
since? Has
Not
it
only
gotten
that, but
better
Muhammad
since?
Ali was also a pretty good friend of mine over the years. We weren't great buddies and all that, but all the times I met Muhammad and sat down with him, I was amazed at the depth of knowledge that he had and how he knew that he had to create a peaceful moment to try and get people to understand what's happening in America and these incredible athletes who are out there. And if Megan Rapinoe wants to kneel, God bless her, because that's what America's all about. America's about freedom to express yourself. And people saying that she's not patriotic, she is patriotic because she is paying homage to America, the country that allows her to do that and allows her to have a peaceful protest and allows her to tell people, we need to take a better look at what's going on in this country. And you want to bring it full circle? Let's stop being so damn hateful of one athlete who goes out and says, I need to step away for a moment because of mental health. It's all part of this hate factor we have for athletes and anybody who's famous and anybody who decides to make a point peacefully. And I have no problem with that
And
whatsoever.
according to your logic,
None.
everybody should
None.
kneel. Let everybody kneel, Ed. Let them all kneel.
Yes,
Yeah,
everybody
because
can
you know why?
kneel, Andy.
Because from Tommy Smith in 1968 till now, it really hasn't gotten much better. It really hasn't.
Thank
for the
you for
African
making
American
my
community,
point again.
it hasn't gotten much. So let them all kneel. Did it work?
Good.
Did the
Maybe
fist
if they
work?
all kneel,
Did the
maybe
kneel
things
work?
would get a little bit better,
There's
Andy.
got to be a better way. There's got to
What's
be a
the-
better way.
Okay.
Kneeling and fist is not working, and it's not.
You're saying it's not worked at all? I disagree. I tend to think it has
What's
worked. You know
gotten
why?
better from 68?
You know why it's worked? We're talking
Why?
about it right now.
Yeah,
It's
three
working.
white guys talking about it, and we've
Okay.
never walked in the shoes of an African American. 3 white guys.
You're right. Never have.
Yeah.
Have no
Well,
idea what
first
it's
off,
like.
first off, Andy, I would take issue with that because my job is I fight very hard for them, and I actually keep people out of the state's cage on a weekly basis. So I actually do affect change for them. So I know you don't mean anything by it, but I actually work in the system, and I deal with it quite frequently.
Well, good.
So,
God bless you. You're making change,
so
but you don't kneel. You don't kneel to make change.
What's his
You make
decision, though?
change.
America, you have a decision. He's made his decision, and I respect
Okay.
that.
But and I agree, and I'm with you on that, Ed.
Then you
but I'm
should
also
respect Megan Rapinoe for her kneeling.
You know what? No, we have rules. We live in a country that has rules. Yeah, there's
We go.
freedom,
We're
but
coming
there's
back
rules.
again to the
And she
rules.
broke the rules. Yeah. So in other words, you're a
There's
rule
no rule
breaker.
that says you have to
The
stand for the anthem.
IOC, that's what we started it. I don't want to go back again. You didn't hear it.
You don't
It was a
have to because
demonstration.
you'd be wrong the second time.
No,
There's
you're
no
wrong.
rule that says you can't stand. You can't.
And my
but you have
attorney
to
well, here's the
friend
stand.
issue, Ed.
Dave
All right, so here's the issue, right? Here's the issue today, though, right? Because I talk about this on the show, right? Like you get to a certain age. Actually, I think this was in Florida.
Oh
There was
God,
an old
please,
dude.
because everything
this was
sucks in Florida.
I think there was an old retired cop shot a guy over maybe a dispute over popcorn or something. Shot a guy. But I think you
I
get
think
to
I
a
remember
certain
the story.
age, you
Yeah.
just stop caring, and you get mad. But there does seem to be a trend in the country now where rules really just don't apply. I think that's really what Andy's getting at. It's not about maybe
Thank you.
kneeling or whatever, but because Ed's like, well, America this, America that. And I think what Andy's getting to is this is, first off, not an America issue. What Andy is saying,
There's a
and I'm
lot of
not
people
agreeing,
making it an American issue.
but I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. What Andy is saying is there's an IOC rule, and it says you can't do this, and
Right.
she's flying in the face of the rule. And I know what Ed's saying is, well, so what? The greater good is, rules
She's
be
making the
damned.
point that needs to be made on a stage. It goes back to
Sure.
Carlos
So
and
Ed
Smith,
doesn't
who
care,
made a
but
point
I
on a
will
stage when
say
they had the
this.
opportunity.
I will say this. As a parent in this era right now,
God
and
bless you. That's tough in itself.
right, and especially in the pandemic era, one of the things I'm struggling with is rules and norms just seem to not matter at all. They just
Thank you.
don't. And it's
Thank you.
like, how do we navigate this world at all? And how do you set your kids up for success? How do you navigate this world? I'm going to be fine, right? Like Andy said, we're white guys on the back nine or whatever. I'll be okay. But how do I set my kids up? And I got a little one too. How do I set them up for success in this world where norms and genders don't exist and norms
Okay.
don't exist? And how do we do this?
But let me get to that.
Right.
Would you not agree then what you just said, that there are rules that need to be changed? That there are rules today in America and rules.
Oh, you're admitting there's
Hang
rules.
on. Hold on, let me finish, please. That there are rules that need to be changed. That they were made in the dogma of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and they need to be changed in order to better reflect the life and the society that we are in 2021. And I think when we're dealing with children, or we're dealing with sports, or we're dealing with social norms, whatever, there are rules that are basically based in things that just don't fit anymore in a society that is smarter. And
you want Megan Rapinoe and LeBron James to make the rules. That's what you want, Ed.
That's
you want
not
Megan
what I
Rapinoe and
said.
LeBron James to
That's
do it.
not
That's
what
fine.
I said, Andy. You've
Well, who's
extrapolated and
changing
you've
it?
gone far out. There are rules
No,
that need to
who's
be
making the
changed.
change? Who's changing it then?
Aren't
By
we all
Megan
changing
Rapinoe
it?
kneeling, she's changing it.
She's trying to change it. She's
I don't
moving
want her
forward,
changing
as are other athletes and other individuals as well. They are trying to make it better and bring attention to what is
to themselves.
basically a
To
country
themselves.
that has a lot of mistakes in it.
Bring attention to themselves. Okay? That's what she's doing.
But by drawing attention to themselves, they draw attention to the effort and what is happening and the
Okay,
social
let me
needs
ask
of
you this.
change. Look, it's
One
the
quick
same
question.
thing. I'm going to go back again to Carlos and Smith, who you could say they drew attention to themselves. You're damn right they did, because they had a pulpit and a moment where they affected change in the world. And
Quick question, if I may.
they surrendered their lives. They surrendered their livelihoods for that. They were punished and sent home. Muhammad Ali decided one time, well, I'll go to Vietnam. Wait a minute. I'll beat people up for a living, but I'm not going to kill them. So what did they do? They said, well, if you're not going to kill them, you can't beat them up. Thanks, George Carlin, for
Quick
saying that
question.
line.
Let's go
But
back to Megan.
he changed things with that one quiet moment. So the quiet moment of kneeling, why don't people, instead of hammering away and saying, how dare you stand against America, which is not what she or anybody else is doing. They're not standing against America saying, I hate this country, which is what these uber nutjob, far right-wing uber patriots want to tell us all the time. What she's doing is saying, America needs a change. And what the others are
Let me
saying is,
ask you
why
this.
not?
I hear what
What's
you're
wrong with
saying.
that?
What is Megan Rapinoe trying to change? Explain that to me. She kneels, okay. What is she trying to change?
Trying to
Oh,
Do you
well,
change.
by the
know?
way,
Hang on, go ahead,
Andy,
Dan.
if I may stop you, by the way, the position of some, um, and I hate to say this, but some of the kids my daughter's age, they do hate America. They don't like America. They don't
That's a
like
problem.
capitalism. They don't like it. I hate America, and they don't like the system. I mean, that's
But
what they're
where did
being
that
taught.
come from, Dan? I think now you're dealing in something else, and that's part of the reason why things have to change. Where did that come
I'm just
from?
telling you, it's coming from there. I mean, I go to the uh, best school system in Colorado. That's what they're getting taught right now.
By whom? The teachers?
They're liberal professors.
Hang on, stop with the whole thing here. You're telling me, and I just want to be sure that I hear this. You're charging that the teachers in your school system are teaching children to hate America.
I don't know. I'm just telling you,
Okay.
it's either social media or I'm just telling you my, and I'm bearing
Okay.
my soul a little bit
Okay.
for you, trying to do everything right, moving to the best place we could and raise the kids the best we
Mm-hmm.
can, moving to the best place, going to the best schools, whether it's social media or whatever. Like, it's hard right now. Like, rules don't seem to apply,
Okay.
right? Like,
But
and
but
that's what
can
they
I
believe.
kind of set the difference here though, and what you're saying? If a teacher at any level is out there teaching children to hate America and not teaching them the reality and the fact of history or anything else, if they're foisting their personal
I don't
opinions onto
know.
the children, they should be fired immediately, and they should never be allowed to teach a child again in their lives at any level whatsoever.
But wait a
We have
minute, eh? You talk about freedom of speech
no, 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 no,
and
no, no. I'm
wait a
talking.
minute,
Sure,
no,
they have. No,
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 no.
don't back
Don't.
down
No,
now.
no, no.
If you can
Don't take
kneel,
freedom of speech and conflate it that way. Freedom of
why
speech
not?
is one thing, but it's an opinion based because what they are teaching them is not factual. If they're not teaching
We
the
don't know
fact, they're
what they're
teaching them to hate
teaching.
America.
And
That's not freedom of speech. That's hate speech. That's different. Now
I'm
you're
not
rolling in.
saying that they're necessarily teaching them that. I'm not saying if it's the teachers, if it's social media, if it's just society in general. I'm just saying that's what's out there right now, and that's
Yes.
the perception is that it's
And you,
that,
as the parent, have a tough job right now to try and hide against it. But you also then you brought social media into this, which is not a
Right.
classroom issue. It is the fetid sewer that is now part of society and part of the world, because there is no greater sewer than social media. Period. End of story. Because that's where everybody can throw everything out, and they can throw out that hate, that fear, that racism, that
And hide
sexism,
behind it.
everything
And
else
hide
they
behind
want.
it.
And that's a problem,
but
because
I will
how do
say
we fight
this.
against that? We fight against that the best way we can by trying to say, okay, look, this is not reality. Here's reality. And unfortunately, Dan, will you not agree with me that that comes down to the parents and the mentors and the guardians who have to take that higher stand?
And the teachers.
Yeah, well, but it's tough. First off, it's tough because the younger and
It's
younger they
impossible.
get, it's really tough to keep devices out of their hands, and schools are actually requiring them to have devices. And second, Now, high school, I don't know what they're teaching, but the second they get to college, uh, you know what they're teaching in colleges, right? As far as
Well, it
doctrines and
depends. Depends. If you're going to a college which has a high liberal bend, then they're teaching them something too far to the left. If you go to a college that has too much far of an evangelical side, they're teaching them much too far to the right. But it's the parents who are making the decision to go there and send their children there. So either the parents are going to agree with, yes, you can teach my child far right or far left, and I'm okay with that. Or what do we teach them? Do we try to balance them out when they come home? Do we try to find a place where they're not going to be indoctrinated this way? I agree with you. There are schools out there that are teaching far too much on the edge. I sure as hell wouldn't
yeah,
send my kid there, which then might be the reason to go ahead and homeschool. Thank God I have dogs.
yeah. Well, I can tell you, homeschooling for the last year, no, thank you.
But the point that it comes down to is what this is all about is making people aware. And I think what's happened is, I'm going to bring it around to how we began. Simone Biles has decided to make people aware of mental health issues. Good for
No
her.
doubt.
Because it
Okay.
needs to be done more often, because there's a lot
But
of
I got a
crazy
question.
people out there, and there's a lot of people who need mental health help every
No
single
doubt.
day, and they're
One
not
quick
getting it,
question.
which
Let
comes
me
down
leave
to
you with this.
insurance and everything, it opens it
What,
all
what
up.
is Megan
But
Rapinoe
with
making
but
me aware of?
you
That's
have
all I
a
want to
real
know.
problem. You have a real problem with Megan Rapinoe. I think
No,
you're a
I
sexist.
don't.
I think you hate her
She-
because she's got purple hair and because she's a successful athlete and maybe
She's
because
a hell of a soccer
she's
player.
not the kind of sexual orientation you would want. You hate her
That's
for
not
a
true.
reason. Yeah, it
No, I
is.
don't. I don't hate. I don't hate anybody. I
There's
really
something
don't.
in
I'm
there,
not a hater.
Andy.
I'm not a hater.
Because
However,
why
I
are you
just want
picking on
to.
Megan Rapinoe when there are so
Because I
many
want to know
other
what she stands
athletes out
for.
there who are doing the exact same thing?
I
Andy,
want to know what she
Andy,
stands
do you,
for. That's
do you
what I'm
not
asking.
like Megan Rapinoe because she's an outspoken gay woman? Is that what you
I
not
love
like?
her. I love Megan. I'd love to meet her.
Really?
And I'd like to ask her the
Shut up
question.
and play soccer.
You're kneeling. What are you kneeling for? That's all I want to know.
She's
That's
already
fine.
said she's answered that question a thousand times.
For gay rights. For
To
gay rights.
make people aware of social change that needs to be made in America, whether it's gay rights, whether it's the fact that we're locking people up and we're locking African Americans up at record rates, where it's the fact that we put people on trial who don't deserve to be there, where it's the fact we have people on death row who are there for 30 years, and then all of a sudden we find out that there was a problem with the policing, and whether or not we have, for instance, in Miami Beach recently, just the other day, I wish I would have made a copy of the video. I have it, but not for the show, where there's a guy who tries to get into an elevator and he's got one cop who gets him with a gun, points the gun at him, and then before you know it, there's 20 cops on top of this guy, and the body cams are capturing the cops, kicking him in the head. He's bleeding on the ground. He's completely defenseless, but they keep kicking the guy. So there's problems in here. Police brutality, you damn right, there's a problem with police brutality in this country. And I'm a guy who's got law enforcement in my family, and I can tell you, and friends as well, but I can tell you that there's a faction out there. There's the bullet heads in this country that just love to beat up people. It doesn't make a difference who they are. And they'll take better joy in beating them up if they're black, Muslim, or Hispanic. That's a fact.
I hear you. And Asian.
And Asian. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if Megan Rapinoe or somebody wants to take a moment and kneel, and if anybody wants to come up and say, my point is we need to stop this idiocy that is destroying this country and ripping us apart, good for them. I don't see a problem with that. But I think you and Megan Rapinoe need to get together and have coffee.
Can you set that up for us? Really? I'll be there.
I would
I'll
be
meet her
happy.
at Starbucks.
I would be absolutely happy to.
And I'll tell you what, I'll dye my hair purple to meet her.
You don't have any hair.
I got hair. I got plenty of hair.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Why are you wearing that hat then?
You wore the hat. I didn't think you had any. We have
cool.
gone so far over, but there's two things that I teased at the beginning of the show, and I want to make sure we get them in here because I want to get you guys to please take on these two issues. First of all, I mentioned dogs. I'm a huge dog guy. I mean, Dan, you are already. You've shown us already your love for the four-legged fuzzies. Andy, you got a dog in the house, right?
Yeah, Chinese pug.
Chinese pug.
Yes.
I fight, as it says on my social media, I'm a protector of puppies. I'm the guy that if I see a dog being abused or an animal being abused, I will stop my car, I will get out, and I will get physically stupid. I will stop somebody from doing it. I'll do it if they hurt children. Anybody, if I see, I'm just one of those people that has to step out and do something. Somebody said I should have been a cop one day. Maybe I should have, because I will put myself in harm's way for dogs in order to save them. I give money every month to the ASPCA. And there's a lot of people wondering where that money is going to. And I think it's fair. CBS News had a rather lengthy report, and I'm only going to play a couple of minutes of it here, but it talks about how we are all caught every single time by the commercial that begins, and I think it's Melissa Etheridge, where it talks about how terrible it is and we need your money and we need help to save these animals every day. CBS News did an investigative story on the ASPCA, and I think it's time we open some eyes.
Joe Sullivan was an executive vice president at the ASPCA when those commercials came out and was part of the team that created them. Now she works for the SPCA in Houston.
It is frustrating on this side of the table to realize that a bulk of our time and our staff time is spent trying to explain the difference between national and local. We need our donors and the people in our community to know where their money is going.
Gary Rogers can tell you where donations to the ASPCA are not going.
I don't know how they can put their head on a pillow at night, knowing that there are so many animals out here that money could be used for other things. We save their lives.
Rogers is president of the Nassau County, New York SPCA, a local charity that fosters animals, investigates abuse, and rescues animals in danger.
One of the major problems that most SPCAs have is that the ASPCA does not fund these agencies.
Wait, the ASPCA doesn't fund you at all?
No, we receive no money from them at all.
We spoke to more than 24 local SPCAs across the country. A few had received grants worth a few $1,000s from the ASPCA, which they had to apply for. Most, like Sullivan in Houston and Rogers in Nassau County, had received nothing.
No SPCA across the country is part of the ASPCA.
I would think a lot of animal lovers, pet lovers, would assume the ASPCA is some sort of umbrella organization.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not even close to it.
In 2019, the ASPCA took in nearly $280 million. The ASPCA says 77 cents of every dollar goes towards supporting the charity's mission. They say, hey, 77 cents at every dollar goes to programming expenses.
The devil is in the details when one looks at spending.
Brian Mittendorf teaches nonprofit accounting at The Ohio State University. He says about 40% of the ASPCA's operating expenses went towards hands-on help with animals.
I guess the big question is there a disconnect between what donors are putting money into and what that money is being invested in?
Your $19 monthly gift could mean the difference between life and death.
We decided to look at how that $19 donation is being spent. According to the organization's tax forms, we found nearly $8 of each $19 donation went towards hands-on help with animals. Nearly $7 went towards mission-related public education and policy, which includes telemarketing and direct mailings. Another $3.50 went towards other kinds of fundraising. The rest, towards management. In 2019, the ASPCA CEO Matt Bershatker made more than $840,000. That's more than the CEO of the American Red Cross, a nonprofit 10 times bigger than the ASPCA.
As I noted, it doesn't sound all that bad, but if a guy who's running an organization is making over $800,000, that to me is obscene, because I can't think of anybody who's more abhorrently despicable than anybody who harms animals and puts them in harm's way in any way, shape, or form. I don't quite know how to think about this and how to feel about this story, because while it says that 77 cents of every dollar goes to helping the animals, here's a guy making $800,000. I think you'd be really good. Why don't you make $120,000 and put more of that money to the dogs? I tend to think there's a lot of shadiness going on here, and I think this happens with a lot of charities, but what really bothers me, guys, is the fact that it's happening with dogs. Maybe I'm just too sensitive to it, but I think we deserve to spend more of this money, and we really need to know where a lot of this money is going.
This is the first thing I agree with you all day long, Ed. It really is. And I'm with you 1,000%. $800,000 plus is disgusting. It really a disgust to oust that guy.
But I don't know what the answer is here, Dan, because it would seem that they're doing good. So how do we balance against doing good and where all the money's going?
Right.
All right. So Ed likes to use a term called knee jerk. This is knee jerk.
It is
so
fair.
Ed can go find somebody that can do that dude's job for $120,000 a year. that doesn't raise the type of money that this guy raises now. That's not as good at his job,
Okay,
and they
fair.
won't do as much good. So this
Let me
guy
tell you
makes.
something. Ed
Oh,
Berliner
please
could do
interrupt
a
me,
better
Andy.
job than this
Please,
guy.
please, Andy, interrupt me. Please, go ahead.
Ed Berliner could do a better job than this guy.
We
Ed
don't.
Oh, I'm
Berliner
sure he
has
Wait a
a
could.
minute.
I'm
Wait
sure
a
he
minute.
could.
Wait a minute.
and he has a
Dan.
bigger platform than this guy.
But wait a minute. Dan's got a point. He's got a point. The fact that this guy makes $800,000 a year, does it not help that 77 cents of every dollar goes to the animals? Is he not doing his job? Okay, so he makes a lot of money, but
Right.
Dan's point is well taken. Is it? That's my question here. Is it a knee jerk to think about this? And Dan, thanks for bringing it in. To even consider
Yeah, I mean,
this,
I'm
is
sure
he still just
if
doing
if
good
if
work?
that much is going to, so what? He could make $10 million a year if 80% of the money is going towards the cause. I don't care. That means a whole lot of money is going towards the cause.
Would you
That's
agree with
good.
me, though, that what was disturbing in that report is that you have the ASPCA in here that has the marketing, the social media, they have all the power here. This is a big gun organization. And then you talk to the people at the local level, which is the SPCAs, and I don't know about you, but I never knew that the SPCAs didn't get a dollar from the ASPCA. I thought it all sort of washed its way down sooner or later. Would you not agree that maybe there needs to be a change here? Because you have the national effort, great, but a lot of these animals are being killed every single day and euthanized because the local organizations don't have the money.
And I
Yeah,
like
I
what
mean,
they said in the report.
Go ahead, Dan.
Excuse me. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I mean, I'd like to see where if they say 80% of the money's going somewhere, I guess I'd like to know exactly where that is, but it's obviously going somewhere. I mean, locals are. I don't know exactly. You know how you know how local news reporting goes, Ed. Like they
Yeah.
get their information, they get it from a source,
They get it
and
from a
then you're like,
public relations flack who gives it to them and they just regurgitate.
exactly.
Yes.
So I don't know what the true story is, but if the number is true that 77 cents on every dollar is going somewhere, maybe that's a true number, maybe it's not. I guess we'd have to find it out.
I'd like to see more money going to local shelters because I can tell you, I follow a lot of shelters, and these shelters are dying every single day. They're trying desperately to find some money, and they can't just turn to the government and get it. They have to rely on donors. And a lot of the times you have the ASPCA who is sucking it all up and basically taking and leaving the crumbs for everybody else. And unfortunately, you have these animal shelters where they have to euthanize a number of animals. Look, we have no-kill shelters in South Florida, and I can tell you quite frankly that the Miami-Dade shelter, they kill them. I know that for a
Really?
fact because I know people and they claim to be a no-kill. They kill them because they do it because they say we don't have the money. It would be nice if the ASPCA then decided to bring everybody in here, but again, that could be knee-jerk. Let's just say this, if everybody at least spends a couple of bucks and give a couple of bucks to your local shelter, let's make everybody happy. That's not a knee-jerk. That's the right thing to do at the end of the day. I'll drop one more in here before we go because I did say we were going to get to hockey. So I wanted to make sure we got this in here. And thankfully, seeing as we have Dan Jacobs here, the judge and the lawyer, he also can weigh in on this as well, but we all can. In San Jose, one of the best players in the National Hockey League is Evander Kane. And Evander Kane's wife has come out and she has made some startling allegations against him. He obviously has some issues going on, but we have a wife who is complaining about what could be really criminal activity by her soon-to-be ex-husband. But we also have to balance that against the fact that we are hearing from him that I never did any of this, and the issue comes down to gambling on sports and gambling on his own team, which every sport has got to first and foremost nail that down and get that out of the system the second they hear about it.
The NHL is investigating San Jose Sharks star Evander Kane. This after his wife posted on social media about gambling allegations. KPX5's Andrea Borba with more on what it could mean for Kane going forward.
That's one he's taking a number for later, and what a job. This is the strength of Evander Kane.
San Jose Sharks star Evander Kane is under investigation by the National Hockey League after his wife Anna alleged on social media that he bet on his games, perhaps even tanking them. How does the NHL let a compulsive gambling addict still play when he's obviously throwing games to win money? Maybe someone needs to investigate this. Bob Dorfman is the creative director of Baker Street Advertising and a sports marketing analyst.
Oh, this is a 10. This is short of murder. This is about the worst thing a pro athlete can do. betting against your own team if the allegations are true.
Gambling allegations aren't new for Kane. He was sued by a Las Vegas casino for allegedly walking away from $500,000 in gambling debts and filed for bankruptcy, citing $1.5 million in gambling debts. The NHL responded, saying, "The integrity of our game is paramount, and the league takes these allegations very seriously. We intend to conduct a full investigation and have no further comment at this time." If Kane is found to have bet against his own team, he would likely be banned from the sport for life, much like Pete Rose in 1989 when he was managing the Cincinnati Reds. Rose has never been reinstated by baseball. In a statement, Kane said, "Even against the advice of my legal team, I feel strongly that the public and fans hear this directly from me. I have never gambled/bet on a Sharks game, never gambled/bet on hockey, never gambled/bet on any of my games, and never thrown a hockey game." Dorfman thinks it's likely Kane, among the few black players in the league, will be suspended by the NHL during the investigation.
It kills his market value. He was making $7 million a year with the Sharks.
Gentlemen, I don't know about you, but let's go back to that knee-jerk phrase that Dan used and brought into the conversation. I want to bring it in here. Short of murder, if that's what he's doing, I don't hear enough of people actually saying that this is alleged. I don't hear enough of those words in there, because can we not agree, at least to a point, that Evander Kane, whether he's completely innocent of this or not, he's lost. I mean, at this point, he's going to lose a lot of money. His career is going to be tainted simply because it's a he said, she said, and we don't know what the facts are right now. I think this is all part and parcel. Again, the media jumps on this, and I don't hear enough people saying, we don't know. Simone Biles, we don't know what she's suffering from. Evander Kane, we don't know what's happening. And this really frosts my ass every time I hear it, that this guy's career, he's a gambler, okay, so is a lot of people, but it may now be over. And Andy, I can hear talk radio lighting this up right now because they're going to say he's a cheat, he's a fraud, he's a wife beater. Pew! Off they go into the flights of fancy, and the guy's life is ruined.
You know, I'm going in the opposite direction. I don't like that guy, Bob Dorfman. The guy, Bob Dorfman, who was interviewed. He basically crucified Kane. He basically said he was guilty. And I'm saying if he had any common sense, he would have said, let's wait till the facts come out. We don't know. But the point is that there's a lot of things stacked against Kane. The fact that $500,000 in gambling debts, which does not mean he threw the game. And I got to ask a question. I'm not a tremendous hockey fan, but I wouldn't know how to throw a hockey game. I really wouldn't. I mean, I don't understand how you dump on a. He had the best career of his life this past year.
Well, that's the point.
He did it.
There's a lot of ways to throw a hockey game. There's a lot of ways to throw a basketball game if you want. A lot of ways to throw everything.
Basketball's a lot easier. I think basketball's easy with five guys. However, I'll say this. It seems to me it's a jilted wife. He probably was cheating on his wife. I read some reports, the fact that he told her to sell the wedding ring to get formula for their kid. He was out partying in Europe. But the point is this. That has nothing to do if he gambled on hockey. Nothing whatsoever. They're throwing the house and everything against this guy, but they still haven't proved a damn thing if he gambled on a hockey game.
Dan, this comes down to legalese in many ways. There's no proof here of anything. There's proof that he maybe walked out on a gambling debt at a casino and they came back after him and they got their money back. But there's no factual evidence here except just hearsay at this point. And this guy's career is going to take a hit no matter how he plays it.
Right.
Okay. People have to stop saying hearsay. It drives me crazy as a lawyer when people say hearsay. Hearsay is an out-of-court statement. Hearsay only has one specific purpose, whether it's admissible in court or not. It's an out-of-court statement. So people quit saying that. The fact that she posted something on social media and then put really damages her credibility. Any spouse that is posting things on social media about a divorce during a divorce proceeding really damages their credibility. So the very fact that she did that raises questions in my mind. He clearly has gambling issues.
Yes.
That's a problem for him. He is going to have to answer questions with the league. He's going to have to answer questions with his employers on that. Is his career over because of this or because she's making the allegations? No. It's going to be problematic for him.
We don't know that yet because if the league suspends him, and then
I know because I just told you.
the Sharks may
I'm the
decide.
expert. You invited me on the show. I just told you.
Damn it! I keep forgetting that. And the Sharks.
It's problematic. It's
It
problematic.
comes down to the fallout from this, because there are those who are going to believe, because it's not reported properly, and again, not put in the proper perspective, that, oh, he must have left his wife all alone. He must have left the wife and the child all alone. He must have taken every dollar from them, when we don't know any of that. And the Sharks may say, we got a lot of female hockey fans. We're going to have to bail on this guy because we don't want to get hurt marketing-wise. And you know that's the truth.
We haven't heard a word from Gary Bettman from the league. I would love Gary Bettman to say, hold off, let's just let the facts play out.
Well, but the league has issued a statement. That's the league's proper.
Well, I'd like to hear
the commissioner on everything.
I'd like to hear the commissioner say something. I think he needs to step up. This is a big deal. When Pete Rose was involved, the commissioner was there every single day.
Well,
every
the commissioner
day.
should have shut his mouth on that one too, because that had to play out.
Right.
Instead of being on things right away, don't you just let it play out? I think that Bettman is doing exactly the right thing. Here's our league statement. We're going to investigate it.
I would like to see Bettman say, let it play out.
Yes. I mean, look, from a legal standpoint, Dan, would you want the commissioner and everybody else getting out in front of this? I think they're playing it exactly right. Downplay it. We'll investigate it. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah. Absent evidence, I mean, you can off a wife's social media tweet, you can't do anything on this. So you got to let it play out, and if there's evidence, then you take appropriate actions. If I were them privately, I'd be taking some pretty hard looks at some game film and some tapes, and
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be looking at some things, and I'm sure they will. They'll be looking at, are there instances where you can see if he was, throwing games.
Well,
it's not a good look for him. I mean, it's just not, because
that's the point. It's not a good look for him, and it's not his fault.
No, it is his fault, because he has a gambling problem.
Well, but he has a gambling problem, but
you didn't relate that to hockey.
Not necessarily about the fact that he bet on games, which is no evidence of whatsoever.
Let's take a step back.
Okay.
The reason that Pete Rose is not back in baseball is because Pete Rose has publicly said, and we know, he won't stop gambling.
Well, there was proof too that he bet on the Reds.
Well, I don't know if there's proof of that or not.
Yeah, there is.
He admitted he bet on baseball.
Okay. Well, he said, he admits he bet on baseball, and I think he said he never bet against his team to lose. But he's already said, I will not quit gambling. Right? Like he said, even they should let me back into baseball, and I'll be a good boy, but I'm not going to stop gambling. Like, he cannot stop gambling. He will not stop gambling. That's why.
You make it sound like gambling is a disease, and it is a disease, but in the sense that it's like a tremendous thing that you're marked X for life. Let me tell you something. I worked at racetracks most of my life. All right, I worked at a racetrack in Northern Kentucky where Pete Rose came every single night, and we're pretty good friends till this day. And during the baseball season, when I worked at racetracks, I've seen umpires come out there and bet 4 or 5 races, and they go back and umpire their games that night. Are you going to tell me you're going to suspend those umpires because they bet on horses? It's ridiculous. It's legal.
They're doing something legal. Pete Rose absolutely bet on baseball, and he bet
That's
on
right. He broke
that
a
the Reds
rule.
were involved in, which is against
in
the
every
rules of
clubhouse.
baseball for players.
You're right.
It's
It's in every
there on the
clubhouse.
damn door.
No doubt. Okay.
Right.
I agree.
Right. So,
and I think if he would have came forth early on and admitted, this country's pretty forgiving. If he would have got a second chance, maybe. But he denied, and he finally admitted it later on.
Right. So what baseball has said to be, he made that choice. He's a gambling addict. They've said, you bet on baseball and you're a gambling addict. You have to not be a gambling addict or stop gambling to be back in. And he said, I'm making my choice. I want to gamble. So he made that choice, and they've said, well, we're making our choice.
Well,
so that's
and that
it.
comes
They never gave him the option to come back in. He's gone. He's banned for life.
Let's focus back on Evander
Well,
Kane.
No. First off, no, that's not true.
Go ahead.
I've said, actually, at the Sports Fan Radio Network, where Ed and I worked, because he worked there, the legal pleadings that they were laying around, I read them one time. It was a 1-year deal, and he had the option to be back in. Right? He could be back in, but he just won't make the mea culpa and say, I'll quit.
I interviewed Fay Vincent not long before he passed, and sat down with him, and he looked me in the eye. Fay Vincent was one of the most honest people I've ever met. He said, I gave him every opportunity. We bent over backwards to get him back into baseball, and we did everything we could, and he thwarted us at every single turn. where he just didn't want to follow the rules, what we wanted him to do, and he wouldn't admit to us. Now,
He's a degenerate.
Pete Rose will never play. Will never be, not play, of course, at his age. He'd have to be 140, but he'll never be back in baseball. He should never be in the Hall of Fame. Period. Because he's admitted that he bet on baseball.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
He should be in the Hall of Fame, Ed.
He should be in the Hall of Fame.
It's another argument we're going to have for another day. We'll be here for an hour.
Retract.
I mean, you got Ty Cobb in there who killed somebody.
No,
Come on.
I won't.
Take it back, Ed.
Nope.
Take it back.
Sorry. Nope.
Take it back.
Well, tell me why. Why shouldn't he be in the Hall of Fame?
We're going to be here for another hour if we do this. Pete Rose broke the rules. He basically said, I didn't break the rules. I was.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Which means
wait a minute. So
that's knee jerk, Ed. That's your
30 minutes ago. 30 minutes ago. 30 minutes ago. Megan Rapinoe broke the rules. So what? The rules don't matter.
No, that's
she's allowed to
right.
Now, Pete Rose broke the rules. He's out.
Right.
He broke the rules.
Rule in baseball
rules are
said you
rules.
bet against
He's out of the Hall
you
of Fame.
tried to fix the games. Megan, he tried to fix
wait a minute. Time out.
Game.
Show me. Time out. Show me the rule of the whole. No, wait. Show me the rule in the Hall of Fame saying that if you break the rules, you can't end the Hall of Fame. Show me that rule. Show me that rule, Ed.
Baseball, which involved.
And he's out of baseball, but he can get into the Hall of Fame. Ed, you're not listening. He broke the rule of baseball. He can't get back in. He can't work as an announcer. He can't work as a coach or a manager. But he can't get into the Hall of Fame. But he can't. No, he can't. But he can't get into the Hall of Fame. That has nothing to do with Major League Baseball. It's run by the Baseball Writers. It's run by the Baseball Writers Association of America. He can get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but the Baseball Writers Association of America don't seem to be in a rush to get him into the Hall of Fame, do they?
Well, after he dies, he'll get in because every one of these drug addicts will get in too. Every one of these steroid freaks will get in. That's cheating. The same thing. What's the difference? Cheating or gambling, right?
I'm going to get you guys back here and we'll have these discussions again because we've already gone way over our normal time here. We could do this. We could do this for another hour, but we could just do the whole Pete Rose thing.
Well, I can't because I got to go to the bathroom.
Well, thanks. I'm glad you talked to know more about your prostate is a brilliant thing.
So is Dan's dog.
I've always wanted to know that. Look, just be nice to your dogs and everything's fine. That's all. Give to your local shelter. Let's go ahead and end on that. We'll end on something well. Let me remind everybody now that this show has now set a record. Every show we've done has set a record for the length of how far we've gone. This will take me a week to edit this show down into smaller segments. And I have no idea how I'm going to do it with Andy Furman. And by the way, my good buddy Mark Goldberg is sitting here on the text messages. I think he's unhappy that you mentioned your prostate. He really does, that you had to go to the bathroom. He said it's too much information.
Does he want to watch? He could watch if he wants to watch.
A reminder to everybody that for Andy Furman, you can get a hold of him on Facebook at Andy Furman1. Twitter is Andy Furman FSR, stands for Fox Sports Radio. And LinkedIn, it is at Andy Furman. Am I missing anything?
Not at all.
No, okay. Well,
my address. If you want to write me a letter, you want my address?
No, we don't want your address. If you want to get a hold of Dan, do not look. When you're in Otis, Colorado, be good. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. Be good, and you'll be fine. Facebook, it's Dan Jacobs, at Dan Jacobs 7. Twitter, it's at Dan T. Jacobs Law. And LinkedIn, it is at Dan Jacobs. Gentlemen, I got news for you. We have normally done this in a four-man format. I'm glad we stayed with three. Cripes, this is the best show we've ever had simply because we stayed with three. And it is indeed that free-for-all. Guys, hey, look, thank you very much. We'll have you back again. I mean, look. We can. The great thing about this show is we can argue, but we can still be friends at the end of the day. Unlike 97% of America, and unlike anything that goes on Facebook, where everybody wants to piss, moan, and get angry, and all I want to do is just have some good time on those. Guys, thanks so much. Be well. We'll talk to you both real soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right, guys. That's it. Dan is just being very quiet right now. He wants to just. He's careful.
I think it was a great show.
I guarantee you Dan's going to send me notes on social media now. There's going to be some back and forth here on these conversations. And by the way, yes, I
know
will
he's
appear on your show again.
He wants to come back, but without me. I get it.
No, Andy.
Are you kidding?
I listen to you all the time in Denver. I listen to you all the time.
I used to live in Littleton, you know.
When is your show on, by the way, these days on Fox Sports?
On the weekends.
Do you have a time?
Sunday morning early, 6 to 9. And usually Saturdays from 5 to 8 in the afternoons, Eastern time.
That Eastern time?
Eastern. Sirius XM 83.
Okay, good. So now everybody knows where to find him. Find Andy Furman, find Ed Jacobs, and again, One of these days I'll be back in Colorado. I'm going to buy you a beer. I thank Dan Jacobs. I thank Andy Furman. I thank you as well and everybody who took part in the show. Please don't forget, go to welcometothearena.com where you can find all of the shows there in the Man in the Arena series. Go to any of your favorite audio podcast platforms. Just search out Ed Berliner. You'll be able to download every single show that's there. And don't forget, we drop these new shows on Tuesdays and Fridays at 3 o'clock Eastern Time across social media. For everybody here, thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, I'm Ed Berliner. Rock on, true believers. See ya!
You're still here?
Are you not entertained?
It's over.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.
Go home.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Go.
That's all, folks.